Now, we're finally starting the actual class. What is concept art? As we prepare to make character concept art, we'll learn what video game concept art is today. Before we get into the real theory, we have to take a closer look at what we'll paint and why we're painting it.
자세히 마주봐야 된다고 생각해요.
We just can't force ourselves to paint concept art without knowing what it even is. We'll take our time learning the whys and hows of video game concept art and what we should aim for as we make them.
그리고 무엇을 목표해서 그려야 되는지 같이 천천히 알아봅시다.
What image did you get when you searched for video game character concept art? You wouldn't get just a front view of a character, but also a three-quarter view, a side view, and a back view image.
측면, 후면 구성되어 있다거나
Some concept art would also show a three-quarter view from the front and back.
반측면과 반측 후면으로 구성되어 있는 원화들.
That's probably what you've seen. How does it look?
어떤 느낌이 드나요?
Aren't they different from regular illustrations? That's right. Concept art is like a blueprint. Unlike how illustrations amaze people with a single image, it's an image that explains the design. The reason concept art is like blueprints is that it doesn't just end as a painting, but also explain things to the next worker.
사람에게 무언가 설명하기 위한 거죠.
So most concept art is processed afterward.
다음에 공정 과정이 있어요.
It's made with the consideration of the next worker.
그리는 거죠.
Let's see an example.
예시를 같이 볼까요?
This process is made with 3D video game concept art. Proposal, concept art, 3D model, animation, effects, and application to the game. That's the process. We take this process when developing 3D games. There are often more parts in between, but I'll just simplify it for now.
간략하게만 설명할게요.
I receive and interpret the proposal.
해석을 합니다.
The concept artist interprets it. I then make the concept art and pass it to the 3D modeler, who makes the 3D model.
형식이에요.
If we're making a 3D model with the concept art, how should we paint it? As shown before, we need both the front and back designs to have the 3D modelers work with ease.
3D 모델러 분들이 수월하게 작업할 수 있는 거죠.
The concept art we've seen so far with meticulously drawn front, side, and back views were made by concept artists caring for the next part of the process.
분들이 세심하게 작업한 겁니다.
When making 3D character concept art, it must be understandable for the next worker. Does the front and back structure match?
구조상 일치하는지,
If you see here, the front design and the back design must match.
뒷면이 이런 구조가 일치하는지. 막
Here, the dress goes straight down, but on the back, it is round.
서 있다던가 이런 것들.
The volume also has to match.
점들이 일치하는지.
Does the length of the dress and hair also match?
일치하는지.
Pay attention to these things to make prettier concept art.
신경 써주시면 더욱 더 예쁜 원화가 나와요.
You must not assume that the talented 3D modelers can figure it out and carelessly make the concept art.
그러면은 안 돼요.
The 3D modelers have no choice but to make it exactly like the concept art. So if there are confusing or covered parts, like how the collar covers the internal outfit, you must take it out and paint it separately, redraw it, or write it as text like. Here's what it looks like. This part looks like this, and draw it separately for better results.
이렇게 따로 다시 그려주면 좋습니다.
I also wanted to show you orthographic paintings and 3D models made with it, but I can't due to copyright issues.
수가 없어서
So I got permission from another 3D modeler.
가져왔어요.
Based on this character concept art, the 3D modeler made it into a 3D model. This is done by 3D modeler Lantum. If you see here, the headgear, the megaphone, and the headset, all of them are made identically.
헤드셋 이런 것도 다 그대로 만들어 주시죠.
It's the same, even to the text.
진짜도 똑같아요.
The structure of the costume and such, even the highlights are identically marked in the 3D model.
그대로 가져와 주십니다.
The more meticulous the concept art is, the easier it gets for the 3D modeler to work.
수월하게 작업할 수 있다.
That's the gist of it. Lantum made the face so cute. Sometimes, the concept art isn't for 3D video games. Recently, there has been a sharp increase in demand for VTubers using live TWED cubism.
유튜버를 봅시다.
Here is an example.
들어볼게요.
I worked on this VTuber concept art for a VTuber company called Prism Project.
회사의 VTuber 원화인데
Her name is Sarah.
라는 캐릭터입니다.
The snake moves with her.
움직여요.
You can see how she moves if you watch her streams. Although you don't get to see the side or the back of VTubers, many concept art has them painted anyway.
까지 그린 원화가 많죠?
Why is that so? That's because you could draw illustrations of them, and also to help people who want to draw fan art.
사람들 위해 만들기도 해요.
In this case, the front, side, and back don't need to align perfectly, and the poses and compositions are less restrictive. However, Live 2D illustrations need the wrists, elbows, shoulders, chest, stomach, and waist to be separated.
쪼개야 돼요.
That's a bit cumbersome. Since many people are curious about this field, I made a separate chapter for it, so we'll cover it more deeply.
한번 더 제대로 설명드릴게요.
We just learned why we must draw the other views along the front view.
그래야 하는지 알아봤어요.
I think you got the general idea of if you should include character concept art in a portfolio and how you should draw it.
아니면 어떻게 그려야 할지 조금은 감이 오셨을 거라고 생각해 봅니다.
As we briefly learned what concept art is, let's go a little deeper and learn what the goals of concept art are.
것들을 목표에서 그려야 하느냐?
Last chapter I said, we must always set goals. You'll hear about goals more often.
자주 듣게 될 거예요.
The goals for making concept art.
목표해야 할 것.
I divided it into 3 main goals.
접근을 하는데요.
1. Match the proposal.
맞게
2. Match the internal specifications. 3. Match the needs. Let's check each of them. I mentioned proposals earlier.
아까 말했었죠?
Proposals are written by the producer.
써주는 기획서.
They'd write proposals that state what character they want and how we should draw it.
기획서를 주시거든요.
The concept art must match the proposal. Next, match the internal specifications. Here's what it means. Is this a 3D video game or a cel-shaded game? Is it for a hand-painted 3D character? Is it a 3-head figure or an 8-head figure? Is it a realistic character or a stylized character? Each game has a genre. It could be a shooter or an MMORPG and such. We must match the game's internal specifications, and we have needs. We must match the needs of the consumers that purchase the video game or our art and satisfy their desires.
충족시켜주면서. 입니다.
These 3 goals will be the main topic of today's chapter.
점으로 설명을 드릴 거예요.
Let's take a close look at each of them. 1. Match the proposal.
맞게
As I said earlier, we get proposals before making the concept art.
기획서를 받아요.
The proposal would state what the character does as a member of a faction in a fictional world and ask us to paint them.
하고 기획서를 받습니다.
The proposal I received for this character stated she's a pretty girl and a pro wrestling caster.
미소녀인데 프로레슬러 캐스터였습니다.
A video game company called 7inch collaborated with a VTuber company called Muzubime to make this character, and this is her concept art. 7inch made a game featuring female pro wrestlers. So, they asked me to make a character that looks like a pro wrestler.
라고 하셨죠?
Here's how I designed her.
디자인이
I gave her a tank top that pro wrestlers would wear, and I also gave her rivet gloves.
박힌 장갑을 넣어줬어요.
To make her recognize a caster, I also gave her an earphone.
또 착용해주고
And with the cross-shaped star pattern, I added a sense of sharpness and splendor.
뾰족함 느낌과 화려함을 같이 더해줬습니다.
Like how the hairband is so sharp, it'll hurt if you get stabbed by it, and these earrings are also very sharp. I made her look more aggressive this way.
또 붙였고
And as a pro wrestler, she should be active.
해야 되죠.
To make her move more comfortably, I gave her pants, and I put a fake skirt on top.
올려줬습니다.
But that looked too empty, so let's boost the caster vibe and give her a formal outfit.
했으면 좋겠어서
So I added this collar and tie.
타이도 해줬습니다.
Without a coat, this character looked so bland. She seemed more like a wrestler than a caster, so I gave her a coat to soften the wrestler vibe and strengthen the caster vibe.
어떤 캐스터 느낌을 더해주자.
That's why she's wearing a thick coat.
줄을 걸쳐줬어요.
I really like the design of this character.
좋아하는 디자인입니다.
Let's check the orthographic drawing. This orthographic drawing is made for fan art.
이제 3면도죠.
We have the side view and the 3/4 view. There are also expressions used by the VTuber.
표정들.
This is a piece of fan art I painted. That's all we have.
되어 있습니다.
Here is a design rough.
원화인데
I slowly turned the suit into a pro wrestler outfit.
푼 거예요.
Since she's a caster, I thought that she should wear a suit or a uniforms.
펴야겠다. 이런 생각이 들어서
This one's a little more like a suit. This is the midway design.
정도
And the third and last draft shows the wrestler-like design with the tank top.
사실을 보여준 디자인이에요.
Among these three wrestler-like drafts, A, B, and C, draft C was chosen, and Akari was born.
이번 시안이 돼서 지금의 아카리가 된 거예요.
After making this draft, the company told me to proceed with draft
이번
C.
시안으로 진행해 주세요라고 했기 때문에 이렇게
So with draft C as the base, I further refined the draft.
시안을 다듬어 주고
We have versions with and without the coat. I gave her different hairstyles, and I also changed the outfit color.
색깔도 이렇게 바꿔도 주고
They also asked if I could change the hair accessory, so I also gave her different hair accessories. And with that, Akari was completed.
완성이 된 것이죠.
That's how you match the proposal.
기획서에 맞게 제작해 주면 되는 겁니다.
Now you know what it means to match the proposal. Here's another tip.
조금 더 팁을 드리자면
We don't just make one draft for a proposal.
시안을 한 개만 짜는 게 아니에요.
We're requested to make 3 to 4 drafts.
짜달라고 하시거든요.
A, B, C, D, and such.
D 뭐 이런 식으로요.
The company requests 3 to 4 drafts.
시안을 회사가 요구합니다.
So here's how I make drafts.
어떤 방식으로 제작을 하냐면요.
I make draft a completely like the proposal. The draft would say make her wear a uniform, give her horns, add some wings, and all sorts of stuff. I'd make one draft exactly like that. With draft B, I add some of my interpretations.
좀 추가하는 거죠.
If it were me, I wouldn't add wings and give her a coat instead. Make the suspenders blue and connect them to a one-piece dress.
원피스 같은 멜빵을 입혀볼 것 같기도 한데
It'll also look cute if we had draping ribbons.
귀엽겠다.
That's how I add my interpretation of the proposal and make draft B.
시안을 만들어주고
Draft C uses the new ideas I get as I make drafts A and B.
새로운 아이디어가 막 샘솟아.
I think I can make a better character with the ideas I get.
어떻게 하지? 이런 것들.
So I mix the new ideas.
새로운 아이디어.
With those new and clever ideas, I make draft C. There's also D and E.
더 좋은
If I come up with better ideas, I make more drafts. You don't have to be too strict with your approach and match the proposal too much.
접근하지 않아도 괜찮아요.
If you think you can make a better design, but it doesn't match the proposal, and you're worried you might seem disobedient, it's better to ask the company.
회사한테 한번 물어보는 게 좋아요.
Or like I said before, you can make additional drafts D and E.
만들어도 좋고.
But based on my experience, most companies gave positive responses when I suggested new ideas.
회사는 긍정적으로 검토해 주셨거든요.
They would also explain in detail why some ideas were not acceptable. So, don't match the proposal too strictly and feel free to add original ideas.
아이디어를 넣는다.
That's how you should treat it.
좋습니다.
You might think you can't get character proposals since you're just a job seeker.
라고 하실 수도 있는데
However, you must have proposals for portfolios. Let's say you want to join a company that makes fairy tale style 3D games.
동화풍 3D.
You have to show you can make things in 3D, so you need an orthographic drawing. The front, three-quarter, and back view must be included in the orthographic drawing.
삼면도가 필요하겠고
And since it's in a fairy tale style, the portfolio must have fairy tale style concept art, like Dragon Nest.
동화풍 포트폴리오가 필요하겠죠.
And to express the fairy tale style, instead of making playable characters or characters that are wearing fancy costumes, you should make NPCs with costumes that fit the settings of the world.
NPC가 좋겠다. 라는 생각을 해야겠죠.
You should make NPCs.
좋겠다.
You might want to draw potion sellers. As an NPC, let's make a potion seller that sells potions and other goods. But a potion seller might have a weak impact.
임팩트가 적을 것 같아.
It's too lackluster. Then let's draw a large potion storage as well.
그리고 싶어.
But wouldn't it be hard for a person to carry around this potion storage?
좀 어렵지 않을까?
It's a fairy tale. Let's make it a living being.
창고를 생물로 만들자.
It could be a toad, a sheep, or anything that can carry around the storage.
만들면 좋지 않을까 하다가
This is exactly how I made a portfolio. Here's the potion seller. Potion seller. So, as before, I wanted a large-scale object next to her, and I came up with a snail that makes potion inside its shell.
등껍질 물약이 생성된다는 설정을 넣어서
That's how I made this convenient character that can extract potion anytime you want.
순이한 친구를 그려줬고요.
This hair, the fur on its back is all herbs, so I also made it possible to harvest herbs anytime you want as well.
설정을 부여해줬습니다.
I also added faucets here, since I thought it would be convenient to extract potion just by turning them open, as I drew this character draft.
라는 생각을 해서 만든 캐릭터 시안이에요.
I matched Fairy Tale, NPC, and Scale as I made this draft. Like this, match a self-provided proposal as you make concept art for your portfolio.
제작하면 됩니다.
If you make concept art this way, you won't derail into OT, her designs, and you'll stop wondering why you're drawing this, or feel the urge to draw something else. If you're making a portfolio, try making proposals that suit the portfolio you need.
기획을 한번 해보세요.
This will make things a lot easier. Games have internal standards, I said earlier. From the genre to the game engine, the scale, the point of view, and more, there are a lot of restrictions. Due to these restrictions, we must design characters under them. There are so many restrictions, and let's use point of view as an example. First, we have point of view. Overwatch is a first-person view game. Consider the design being in first-person view. From this viewpoint, we can gather information. The guns and the hands are shown in detail, and the background and characters must be separated, since the players have to shoot other characters on such a wide screen. To help the players aim well, the characters and background must be separated. So we get the feeling that we should use colors that stand out for the characters. The characters and background are clearly separated. For FPS games, you must make them easily separable. And you must pay attention to these areas, as they are easy to miss when you design them. Here is another point of view. Guilty Gear is a side-view fighting game. It's a cool game with unique body shapes and silhouettes. And due to the nature of fighting games, you must look at the opponent's movement and predict their next attack, so the moves must be easily recognizable. Because of that, it aims for easily distinguishable designs. For example, if you have a character covered in fur or an entirely black character like the culprits from Detective Conan, it'll be hard to tell what move or technique they're using. So it uses clearly distinguishable designs and silhouettes that easily tell how they move, which seems very impressive. These elements are what you must consider for fighting games. Here's another famous game. Nier Automata. It's a third-person action game. It's different from earlier. First-person view games are in our perspective. Third-person view games treat us like a camera that looks at the characters from behind. So, you see the backside the most when you play third-person view games. This game is famous for having attractive backs. So if the player can see the backside of the character a lot in a game, the backside must be designed meticulously as well. The users see the backside the most as they play, and it'll be disappointing if it looks bland. For these games, the backside must be designed with care. And here's another famous game, League of Legends. It's a quarter-view AOS game. We're looking from afar, judging where the characters are at and which way we should use spells. You have to tell if the opponent is in the spell range of your character, so the characters must be identifiable at a distance. To make the characters easily distinguishable, they have strong silhouettes and use bold colors that stand out so much. As you must tell who they are, so the head, hats, shoulders, and flapping caps, which are large areas we see at a glance, you must design them very well. Now, we can't even see the shoes. Even if you nicely design the shoes, you can't see them circuit. As you see, for quarter-view games, the head, hat, shoulders, capes must be designed with care for the players. That's how the point of view changes what you must consider for character designs. It changes a lot. It's complicated, but isn't it also fun? Besides this, you must also consider the rendering method. Is it hand-painted, cel-shaded, or is it photorealistic? The fictional world, the genre, and rules made by the company determines how you should make character designs. It may feel cumbersome and difficult, but if you take care of these aspects, the character immerses into the game, builds unity, and they make you feel proud as they contribute to building the world. It is the role of concept artists to work with the restrictions and be creative and efficient, which is the charm of working as a concept artist. That is how the internal specifications can drastically affect how the concept art is created. Next, match the needs. Satisfying the needs. It's important to match the needs, but let me explain the definition of needs. It's a physical, physiological desire for someone, but for us, you can just think of it as the desire of people who will buy my paintings. It's the desire or taste. For example, let's say this proposal requires cat ears, tsundere, pretty girl. Instead of immediately painting what comes to your mind, it's better to do research. Try searching what people who like cat ears also like. Do they just like cat ears, or do they also like cat-like behaviors? What are some famous tsundere characters? How can we visually express tsunders? Don't just immediately draw what the proposal says. The proposal has an intention in mind that appeals to certain users. A cat-eared tsundere girl would appeal to users who like young girls. Instead of being sexy, they should be soft and cute. Since it's cat ears, instead of strong animals like cougars and tigers, we should add cute and silly charms to them. Here's the image that popped into my head. She has a cute little sister-like charm. You want to protect her, and she's so small and cute. However, with the same proposal, what if I draw a fatal, sexy, dark cat woman? She is still a tsundere with cat ears, but the producer might say this isn't what they intended. If this mature character would meow and hiss in a game, it'll be a little too hard for the users to handle. Some people might be into it, though. Anyway, when you receive a proposal, you must analyze it to match the needs. Do you get an idea of how to draw it? If you consider the target audience for your characters to charm and the desires they will satisfy, you can design more charming and stunning characters. We'll also cover how to stylize characters, change the facial proportions, and other areas to pay attention to based on needs in a future chapter. That's all you have to understand for matching needs. Those were the 3 goals we must aim for as we make concept art. What were they? Match the proposal, match the internal specifications, and match the needs. We just learned them. Weren't they easy? If you aim for these 3 goals, you can make better concept art. Lastly, I'll cover one more thing before we move on. It's the difference between concept art and illustrations. As I said earlier, concept art is like blueprints. The role of concept art is to show other people the detailed exterior structure of a character. Concept art can also show various facial expressions, character settings, how it looks without costumes, and other details. But that doesn't apply to illustrations. They must create a huge impact and draw attention as a single painting. So, they use various lights, compositions, backgrounds, special effects, and all sorts of techniques to seem visually attractive. Let me tell you some mistakes I made as an example. A dynamic, personality-driven pose. Driven pose. When I worked at a company, the art director told me that all my character art looked so stiff. They said the characters I painted were standing stiff, and I really painted the characters standing upright without bending their backs. When I saw characters painted by other artists, they would bend their backs and their body would stick out and go like, oopsie, and such. But all the characters I drew were like this. Like a human pole, they all had stiff, straightened backs. Why did I do so? Here's why. I thought I wasn't allowed to cover the design, so I kept drawing this way without even realizing it. The concept art already did its role as the blueprint and showed the design, but the habits as a concept art remained. To show the costume in the illustration, I didn't make a dynamic pose, I didn't bend the back, I didn't apply perspective, and I kept showing every single detail and didn't cover a single ribbon or lace as I painted. That's why it looked flat and stiff. I got shocked, and now I try to draw in various angles and poses. When you draw illustrations, it shouldn't be in stiff poses like in concept art. You can give them dynamic, personality-driven poses as you paint. Secondly, you can use impactful lighting. In concept art, you must show the local colors. You need to convey the color of the costume and what material it is made of. So, you don't use strong lights and use natural light to emphasize the local colors. And I painted that way again in illustrations. While everybody else used cool and impactful lights, I kept using soft lights, expressed the local colors, and only used natural light that was hard to tell where it's coming from. Upon hindsight, my illustrations showed the designs and colors well, but compared to others, it lacked impact. So, for future illustrations, I focused more on lighting and environments than local colors. I'll show you another example. Here are illustrations that actively use lighting. These illustrations better convey the character's atmosphere than their designs. As a fan art, I painted Mostima and Amiya from Arknights. And here, the sentimental vibe stands out more than the design. This is my original character. With the red background and a strong light that is coming from the side, I made a deep and subtle atmosphere. That is how these illustrations actively utilize lighting. Here are illustrations that mainly show the design. The atmosphere is completely different from before. Here, we can see the local colors of the skin, hair, and costume. We can see the materials, the color of the costume, and the structure of them. These illustrations focus on showing the design well. And compared to illustrations that actively use lighting, they might have less impact. I'm not saying illustrations must have an impact. And without impact, they fail to be illustrations. You know, right? I don't mean impactful illustrations are always good, and illustrations close to concept art are always bad. If you want to better show the design, you can use natural light to show the design and make the illustration like concept art. If you want people to see your illustration and make 3D models based on it, you can paint it this way. However, you must recognize the effects it has. If the character design already exists, and you want to make an impact, you draw these types of illustrations. You can also make dynamic compositions, use strong lighting, close up to the character and such. Do you get it? Depending on what their purpose is, the goals you must achieve, and the elements to discard change drastically. Look at the examples again. Concept art focus less on giving an impact and more on showing the design and structure. Illustrations must attract attention as a single painting, so instead of focusing on designs or details, they must give a strong impact. It's very different. So, before you make any painting, follow the design steps clearly to make it easier. Specify why you're drawing it and what you must focus on to gain the maximum effect. The more specific it is, the better it gets. As I said earlier, you can also make a proposal yourself. How was it? There are so many things to consider as you paint. But the more concrete and clearly you plan these details as you start, you'll get lost less as you paint, and you'll end with a high-quality painting. Since we learned about setting goals, let's also make a proposal for the painting we're going to make. In the next chapter, I'll teach you the things you should consider as you make character designs and study the actual theories behind it. If you want to study more effectively, and take more from this lecture, try writing a character concept art proposal and create a simple design rough as you take the lecture. And compare them to see if you should fix your art or not and where to fix it. If you think about these things as you learn, you'll study the next chapter more effectively. So, if you're willing to do some homework, write a concept art proposal and make a simple design rough. I'll see you in the next chapter. Good job, everyone.